Hi, I'm Damon Rascala here to bring you the Practice Makes Perfect video series. Today I'm joined by Tom Clements from Pentify. Welcome, Tom.
Thanks, Damon. Good to be here.
Fantastic. Tom, could you tell us, I guess, in a few words, what data and analytics is all about and data as a service, what that means to you, and I guess putting it into terms that a layperson could understand?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really important statement to begin with in terms of making data and analytics explainable for the masses. Data and analytics to us is all about turning company data of any sort into a competitive or strategic advantage, I guess. Um, Now, I think there's a bit of a tendency for people to be a bit scared of what data and analytics means, but quite simply, you can use any company data, any downloads or any information you have access to, and turn that into an insight and therefore a strategic and competitive advantage for you. At Pentify, that's exactly what we're trying to do: bring data to the masses, but do it in a way that doesn't necessarily live up to the stereotype of data and analytics being a bit of a black box. We're trying to make sure it's relatable, understandable, and not to be feared. It's to be harnessed and drives competitive advantage for our clients.
And tell me a little bit about your background and your business partner, Nick.
Yep.
So, how is Pentify come into being?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, we're on a really exciting journey at Pentify. Nick and I um, came together with relatively complementary skill sets, I think, despite knowing each other for a long, long time. We've thought about starting a business for a good deal of time before taking the plunge. We like I say, we've known each other since school, so we're very, very close. But Nick comes at it. Nick's background is more pure consulting, I guess,
Sure.
having worked at some of the bigger firms. So he's very structured in his thinking, very operationally focused. And I come at it more from a data-specific in-house data pathway, I guess. I started my career as a data analyst and have worked my way through the data world a little bit more on the tools, I guess, than Nick. But that's only that really benefits us and gives us two really distinct thought processes and approaches to our business.
So, talk to me about data integration and why that would be important to a business.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, I think data integration is all about bringing disparate data sources together. And again, those words can be off-putting. But in this day and age, thankfully, even for small and medium businesses, there's avenues and approaches that those businesses can take that really do drive business value. So data integration, like I say, is all about bringing those different data sources together. And it's really important to do that as a business of any size. You need to make sure you know where your customers are, what they're purchasing, their behaviours, and data integration and bringing in different data sources into what we call a single source of truth is a really important process to kick off that sort of data and analytics journey for a company of any size, as I mentioned.
So, following that theme or thought, once we've collected this data and integrated it, how do we then, or how would a business then go about taking that raw data and turning it into some actionable insights?
Yeah, it's a great question. That's probably the $1 million question, I guess. Um, it's very there are thousands of different approaches to turn raw data into an insight. Um, I think historically, an approach that businesses of all sizes have taken is hiring a data analyst to perform some analysis and then share that broadly across the business. But um, more and more now, as new technologies flood the market and data really is a value driver for business, we're seeing tools enter the market that make data accessible for all people within a business. I think gone are the days of traditional data analyst type of roles. What we're seeing now, and again across businesses of all size, is a move towards, I guess, querying the data oneself and giving everyone in the business the power to ask questions of their company data. Much like you talk to a chat GPT, for example, data analytics is very much moving that way to the natural language side. So that equips even non-technical, non-data literate users of data. That gives them the ability to consume it and drive those insights themselves. Having said all of that, it's really important that to get trusted and consistent insights from your data needs to be structured in a way, and it is structured in a really robust way. And that takes me back to the earlier point around integration, and that first step being vital to making sure that you have build a data foundation that can derive consistent and reliable, trustworthy insights.
Really interesting answer there. And I think one thing that it leads me to ponder is, typically or historically, a lot of business owners, particularly SMEs, have relied on gut feel or hunch. Is there still a place for this in business? And what's the advantage of using those data insights that you produce as opposed to going with that gut feel or hunch?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We don't see data replacing the gut feel, the hunch, at all ever. We see it complementing the hunch, and in particular for SMBs, as you mentioned, there's these SMBs rely so heavily upon relationships and gut feel very successfully most of the time. The wave of data analytics and the importance of data is by no means, in our opinion, to replace that. It's to work alongside it and complement that. I think I mentioned that data foundation earlier, but if businesses of all sizes having a strong data foundation, using data analytics to quantify some of those strategies, some of those gut feel approaches, I think that's when the power of data can really complement that hunch. But by no means are we getting rid of the hunch anytime soon, Damon. I think it's super important to be able to use experience, use your relationships, and in this case gut feel to make a decision especially for small and medium businesses.
Great answer. I guess the next question it poses for me is that when we take this data, we've got it, we've collected it, we've made it or put it into a usable format. How does that link in, or how can that be useful for business owners in terms of performance evaluation, KPIs, things of that nature?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, from a performance evaluation perspective, I think what it allows is consistency over time is one of the most important factors. Building a set of business performance reports, or indeed a business performance report, if we're talking about a smaller entity that relies upon the same data integration to rinse and repeat, really gives you consistency over time of your performance. And that data is at the heart of that. Having a strong data foundation is at the very heart of making sure that you can really understand your performance drivers. From a KPI perspective, I think I would argue that it's probably the most important part of deriving KPIs for your business is making sure that the data with which you're building those KPIs on is sound and robust. Again, it can be coupled with gut feel, and sometimes a top-down approach to KPIs is indeed the right way to go. But at least I think having a data-driven KPI approach for a business can really complement that top-down approach that businesses it's still by and large take, especially the SME space.
Talk me through what you've seen in terms of some real life examples. I guess that answer was great. It's theoretical. I'm wondering if you can give us some real life examples of how that plays out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've been lucky enough to partner with some great small and medium businesses in recent times, and we've seen a huge change in mindset and a change in how they approach decision making on the back of having reliable and robust data. A specific example for one of our clients is, again, a small and medium business looking to make the most of their marketing spend, which is obviously crucial across all industries. We started by having a look at their baseline performance from a marketing spend perspective. When we talk about the common marketing avenues in terms of Google search and things like this, we derived a benchmark for them using their performance data, or historical data, I should say. And then put in place a set of KPIs around conversion rates, customer growth via these different avenues, to the point where their CEO looks at those metrics pretty much every day. He has access to a report that we help establish there, that he can see what leads are coming through and the quality of those leads, and thus the conversion rate to becoming customers. So, and that's all built on the back of that strategy was all built on the back of making sure there was robust KPIs behind them. So it's a really important part of data analysis, is making sure you're building KPIs, but also taking a snapshot at the beginning of the strategy to get that benchmark, so you can always have something to reference back to and compare performance to.
Are there any specific tools that you use or that help in terms of conducting this data analysis and the way that you present the information?
Yeah, I think it's a multifaceted approach to BI tooling. You'll hear data people talk about the back end, but that essentially just means the technology that people like myself use. Essentially, that's how the sausage is made, and for the most part, for most of our stakeholders, they don't tend to need to see that. But there are definitely really great tools at the back end that we can leverage, but more importantly, at the front end tools and how we share the insights. For many small to medium businesses, it's perfectly fine to present in PowerPoint or Excel. They're fantastic tools, and invariably, that's where insights really do resonate with the stakeholder. But as I alluded to before, I think there's a wave of visualization softwares and visualization tools that's moving towards that self-generated insight and self-generated visualization. We're absolutely leveraging some of those market-leading tools at the moment for our clients, and like I said, seeing some great success in enabling driving data literacy across these organizations, and integrating those tools seamlessly into their day-to-day operation. We certainly don't go into a client of ours and throw out all the current systems and technology. That's absolutely not what we're about. We're about leveraging current technologies and hopefully augmenting and adding value as and when we can. But primarily at the moment, our focus is on that sort of end user, ease of use visualization tooling that we're driving with our customers.
Tom, that's great. Some interesting points there. I think another question that might be on the minds of a lot of our audience, when they're putting together a data strategy, what does that look like, or what should that look like for an SME?
Yeah, great question. I think this is probably the biggest misconception in the market from a data perspective in terms of people from the outside looking in. A good data strategy is one, first and foremost, that's fit for purpose for that business. I think, in our career, Nick and I's career thus far, we've seen many instances where data strategies for large enterprise organizations is just lift and shift from another company, and that, quite frankly, might have some very short-term impact, but over time that tends to peter out, and the value that was hoped from that strategy doesn't come to fruition. A good data strategy for an SME is one that's, as I said, primarily fit for purpose, but also I think a close second in importance is not being a technology strategy. Data and technology, of course, they coexist, but it's really important that a data strategy is a separate piece from your technology strategy. It's about understanding what the systems you have in place are, where different data points come from, tracing that data, bringing it together in that single source of truth, and then working out the exact cadence for your business to share insights and what tools, what features, what visualization software you can use to make the most of that within the parameters of your organization. Like I say, there's absolutely no value for a small to medium to embark on a data strategy or only for it to tell you to change tools and do a full technology change. That's absolutely not what we're about. We're about people first with our data strategies, and making sure that we fit in and augment the value of their current tech capability. And I guess finally on the data strategy point, it's really important to align it to organizational objectives, I think, by and large. And I think this couples back to a previous question around the gut feel. I think, making sure that, your data strategy fits alongside and not replaces, but works alongside your organizational strategy. That's what gives it the best chance of success, a combination of those three factors.
And from a firm perspective, if an SME out there is looking at this and they decide, yes, data strategy is a great way to go, we understand the value that this could bring, how do they go about increasing their data literacy if they're going from a very low level of understanding? How can a firm best step up in terms of their data literacy?
Yeah, it's again probably a little bit of a fear factor for some, and I'm here today to tell you that you definitely shouldn't fear it. I mean, in our research, in our engagement with Beta Shares, we've spoken to a lot of advisors, and I think one of the expectations we've had to temper a little bit is the thought that you need to rapidly move to a position of being data literate, and that's certainly not the case. You can take gradual steps over time that will drive value, and I think that's especially for small to mediums. I think that's the approach that small to mediums need to take, is a softly approach. Things like understanding that data input is a really important way, in terms of entering customer data and doing it in a clean and consistent manner. Even having a simple business rule around something as simple as that, or perceived to be as simple as that, can drive huge benefit from a data analysis perspective. And then over time, you can, as we talked about data integration before, but as you change those business processes gradually up front, over time you'll harness more clean and consistent data. You'll be able to figure out who and where your customers are, internal performance, your segments of growth, which is something that's super important to SMEs, in particular in the financial advisor space. So, I think for us that's the key to it, from that perspective.
Okay, now flipping things on their head a little bit, we've spoken about benefits to the firm. In your eyes, what benefit is there to the customer when a client has better oversight of data?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of factors that ultimately gets that benefit fed through to the customer. We spoke earlier around knowing where your customers are, and in this day and age, being able to really drill down in understanding customer behaviour, and that's a really attainable data for all businesses at the moment. I think once businesses understand what data they need to capture for their customers, it gives them the opportunity to talk to them in their language, target them with services that they may indeed need, understand historical analysis and patterns of things like cross-selling, segment analysis. So looking at it might be your under 40s or those who are starting their financial planning journey. That might be a completely different segment to those who are established and maybe a little bit more of a hands-off approach. There might be having that strong data foundation, and understanding where your customers are, where they're doing again to that point, I think is super valuable to your customer. It all starts with having that strong data foundation and being able to translate that into insights about your customer cohorts.
So benefits to the firm, benefits to the customer.
Absolutely,
it's a win-win.
Definitely, and it's as I said off the top, it's something that shouldn't be feared, and is really attainable to SMEs in 2024.
Something else that I'd love you to touch on: risk mitigation.
Yeah.
What role can data play in that? Whether it be for AI, tech, data itself, the risk mitigation benefits, particularly to smaller firms.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll touch on the elephant in that question, for lack of a better term. AI. Let's start there in terms of risk. Obviously, we hear a lot about AI, and it's mainly positive perceived benefits of what AI can bring, and we're certainly on board with that. Having said that, we're a long way from AI taking over the world, and it's especially true for SMEs. The core function of an SME and the core operating model of SMEs is all about relationships and being where your customer is and talking to them in a manner that they can understand. That holds true today, and it will, in our very humble opinion, that will hold true for the next 10 or so years. Where AI is currently excelling in this day and age is for those big companies. You obviously we don't need to think too long and hard about some of those companies, but they're at the moment, the scale and complexity of AI, to derive a benefit from an AI strategy in terms of justifying the cost, is best kept to those big entities. There are probably about 5 or 6 in the world that I can think of that are using AI really well. To touch on the risk part of that question, I think the risk comes when AI is misused and when there's not a well thought out strategy or use case for your business. I've alluded to this earlier in this answer, but SMEs in particular do not need to worry about an AI strategy for now. We're a long way off AI at scale, let alone AI at scale for SMEs. the risk of AI, and we have seen it, and in Australia, even though Australia's a little bit behind the eight ball in AI adoption, we have seen instances and examples of businesses that have been really, really keen to dip the toe in the water with AI, but without necessarily thinking about how they implement that to ensure that they're not putting themselves at risk. So we've seen examples of big companies, whether it's a breach of system, privacy, PII being leaked or hacked, and companies trying to quickly react to those instances with an AI solution. I think that's sort of a problem on a problem in terms of how AI should be managed. AI is best kept to, as I said, the top end of town for now, and there are probably some companies that would indeed benefit from having and deploying AI, but it comes with an absolute word of warning from our side. It needs to be well thought out, an extremely well thought out strategy. It's still an expensive pursuit by and large. Having the data at your disposal to build a successful, deploy AI successfully, it's not cheap, and invariably most businesses don't have the depth and breadth of data to begin with. But like I say, we're just simply not at that point yet. So I think the AI excitement is real, and it should be, but I think we need to massively temper the expectation around what it can bring in the near term, and be aware that the risks probably come in when we're looking to run before we can even crawl.
Now, speaking of excitement,
Yeah.
something I am very excited about, you have done some work for Beta Shares specifically with financial planning firms. Now, our audience is predominantly financial planners, so I'd love you to touch on some of the findings that you had throughout that process, and the benefits that you think good data management and analysis can bring to financial planning firms.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the core purpose of today's conversation is very much around speaking to your network and passing on some of the wisdom that they shared with us as part of our relationship. We surveyed, I think, or spoke to directly, I think 12 of your network, all extremely beneficial conversations with the purpose of, I guess, the end goal being how data analytics can help financial advisors to streamline their operation. We broke in our conversations. We broke that down a little bit further into the sort of key challenges that they were facing, and primarily it came down to one big problem that most financial advisors were facing, and that was one of time and not understanding where they were spending their time in terms of spending time on the revenue driving areas of their business, and I guess by association or by consequence, they were really missing the opportunity to build growth in their business from a new client prospect perspective. So we went out to market and spoke to those 12, and like I say, the key finding was one about time, and of course from a data management perspective, it's really, really important. And we go back to the question about the KPIs, knowing that the tools you use, your X-Plans of the world, these tools do indeed have the ability to track your time. It might be a tiny process change at the front end, and indeed it might be a tad annoying to do so, but there's certainly benefits in getting into a habit of changing a process to get better insights off your data. And I guess that alludes to sort of taking it slowly and crafting a change over time. So not only does it give you, not only does that softly approach give you time to get used to a change as a small to medium business owner, it also builds trust in from your clients. They can, as you understand when and where you spend your time, and you can pass that insight onto your clients, there's value in that, and your clients inevitably will look at you and view you as a trusted advisor. I think it's a really important, I guess if we're taking one message away from our engagement, it's there's small steps that you can take to become data literate and use your data a tiny bit smarter.
For the average SME/financial planning firm, is data as a service achievable?
Absolutely. So data as a service is a product that Pentify are really excited to bring to market. Off the top, we spoke about how Pentify came to be, and one of the areas I failed to mention was around our focus on small to medium businesses. As I said, Nick and I have had a history of working on clients of all sizes, but seeing our small to medium partners in the past get served with sort of enterprise-led solutions that invariably are not fit for purpose. Data as a service, we believe, is changing that. I mentioned the capability of technology now to support the work we do, and really drive data literacy to small to mediums. But data as a service is basically, in a nutshell, where we act as your data and analytics function in-house. Small to mediums have access to us. We take care of the data ingestion piece, which is that sort of start of the data lifecycle that we touched on earlier, right through to building strong, consistent data foundations, and then bringing that to the masses through engaging visualizations and techniques. And the best bit is it comes at a fraction of the cost as the alternative, which of course is in sourcing this function. And that's simply not a luxury that small to mediums have. So it gives, it's a really cost-effective route to market to become data-driven for SMEs. It's a monthly subscription that DAS offers, Data as a Service offers. And like I say, it's at a fraction of the cost of hiring this function internally. I mean, if we talk about a typical data and analytics team, you're normally looking at a data engineer, a data analyst, and a data visualization specialist as a starting point. And each of those salaries don't come too cheap. But like I say, DAS is changing that. We're leveraging enterprise leading tools to deliver data to the masses and deliver data to small to medium businesses at a very affordable monthly rate. And like I say, as part of that, we not only take care of the technology and the back end needs, but we also take care of the training. We work with our clients on an X days per month basis. That's part of our personable approach, and something that we know is, from our experience, is super important to drive that data literacy piece that we've touched on. So really, really excited by data as a service. And like I say, I won't get into specifics of numbers right now, but very much a surprising level of affordability, I hope.
Great. Well, speaking of affordable, we will be releasing some of the work that you did for us to our clients out there, our financial planners out there. For those clients that do want to take things a step further, how do they find you and Nick?
Absolutely. Thank you, Damon. Thanks for asking that question. Well, you can find Nick and I, we're at pentifyinsights.com, and we're Tom at pentifyinsights.com, or Nick at pentifyinsights.com from an email perspective. We're also on LinkedIn as well at Pentify Insights. We would absolutely relish the opportunity to have a conversation around data for any of the Beta Shares network. One of the services we offer is a data diagnostic, where we look to very, very quickly get under the hood of a business's data infrastructure and data lifecycle, and essentially derive a current state analysis for them. And at least that gives a hint of what can be done and the possibilities for SMEs. But it's all about taking that first step. I guess for us, the messaging is data and analytics is not to be feared. It's only a benefit to businesses if deployed correctly. And it's absolutely attainable for small to medium businesses. This is an area of the world, the small to medium market is so long been forgotten when it comes to data and analytics solutions. But I can confidently sit here today and say that is definitely changing, which is an absolute positive for all, not least of all our Beta Shares partners.
Tom from Pentify, thank you for joining me today on Practice Makes Perfect.
Thanks for having me, Damon.